My name is Claire, and the moment my life finally broke open did not happen in private or quietly, but under golden lights in front of dozens of people who thought they were attending a perfect celebration. It happened at my sister Madison's engagement party, on a rooftop overlooking the city skyline, where everything looked flawless from the outside. But in less than a minute, years of silence, judgment, and quiet humiliation came crashing down so loudly that no one in that room would ever forget it. The terrace of the Harbor View Hotel shimmered with elegance that night, glowing lanterns hanging above us like captured stars while a soft jazz melody drifted through the air. Waiters moved gracefully between guests dressed in tailored suits and sparkling dresses, and everything felt carefully curated to reflect success and perfection. My father, Richard, stood near the center of it all, holding a glass of champagne as if it were a symbol of everything he had built. When he raised it for a toast, people fell silent immediately, because he was the kind of man others listened to without question. He smiled in that polished, practiced way that always made him look powerful rather than warm, and he began speaking about pride, success, and family legacy. His words flowed easily as he praised Madison, calling her his greatest achievement, his smartest investment, the future of everything he had worked for. The room responded with laughter and applause, and I sat quietly at a smaller table near the edge of the terrace, cutting my food into careful pieces just to keep my hands steady. Then, without warning, his attention shifted to me, and the tone of the evening changed in a way I had learned to expect but never fully got used to. He looked directly at me with a faint smirk and asked, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, if I was still dating that mechanic. His voice carried a subtle mockery that didn't need to be explained. A few people chuckled awkwardly, unsure if they were supposed to laugh, while others simply looked away. I felt my throat tighten, but I refused to react. I kept my eyes on my plate, pretending nothing had happened, because reacting had never helped me before. Beside me sat Ethan, the man they were referring to so casually, positioned as far from the main table as possible as if his presence needed to be minimized. For 18 months, my family had treated him like an inconvenience rather than a person. They never asked about him, never tried to understand him, and never once considered that there might be more to him than the job title they had already decided defined his worth. To them, he was a symbol of my failure, proof that I had not lived up to their expectations. I had learned to endure it quietly, convincing myself that peace was better than confrontation, even if it meant swallowing my own dignity over and over again. But that night was different, even though I didn't realize it yet. Just as I thought the moment would pass like all the others, something unexpected happened. Madison's future father-in-law, Mr. Carter, suddenly pushed his chair back so abruptly that it scraped loudly against the floor, cutting through the music like a sharp crack. He stood frozen for a second, staring directly at Ethan with a look of disbelief, as if he had just seen something impossible. Then, in a voice louder than he intended, he said that it was actually him, the man everyone had been talking about for years. The music stopped almost instantly, and the entire terrace fell into a heavy silence as every pair of eyes turned toward our table. My father's confident expression vanished, replaced by confusion and a hint of panic. My mother, Victoria, covered her mouth in shock, while Madison gripped her glass so tightly that I thought it might shatter in her hand. In that moment, the carefully constructed illusion of control began to crack, and none of them were prepared for what was about to follow. To understand how everything led to that moment, you need to know what my life had been like long before that night. I grew up in a world where success was measured in numbers, appearances, and influence. My father owned a powerful real estate company that shaped entire neighborhoods, and my mother was deeply involved in social circles that revolved around status and reputation. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family, but inside, there was a quiet imbalance that grew more obvious as the years passed. Madison, who was 3 years older than me, fit perfectly into the life my parents had envisioned. She was sharp, confident, and ambitious, and by her early 30s, she had already secured a high-ranking position in my father's company. She knew how to navigate conversations with investors, how to build connections, and how to present herself in a way that made people admire her instantly. My parents saw her as a reflection of everything they valued: and they never missed an opportunity to show it. I, on the other hand, chose a completely different path. I became an art teacher at a public school, working with students who had been labeled as difficult or unmotivated. I spent my days encouraging them to express themselves, helping them see that creativity could give them a voice when nothing else did. I didn't make a lot of money, and I often used my own savings to buy supplies for my classroom, but I loved what I did. It felt meaningful in a way that no corporate title ever could. To my parents, however, my career was something they tolerated rather than respected. My father referred to it as a temporary phase, something I would eventually grow out of once I realized I was capable of more. My mother spoke about it politely in public but dismissed it privately, as if it were a hobby rather than a profession. The difference in how they treated Madison and me was never openly acknowledged, but it was always there, woven into every conversation and every family gathering. At dinners, my father would engage Madison in long discussions about business strategies and future investments, while I sat quietly, listening without being invited to contribute. When I achieved something meaningful, like launching a program that helped reduce dropout rates at my school, it was met with minimal acknowledgement, a short message hours later, a distracted nod, or sometimes nothing at all. Meanwhile, Madison's accomplishments were celebrated with elaborate events and public praise, reinforcing the idea that her success mattered more. There was one moment that stayed with me more than any other, a turning point when I realized that I was not just overlooked but quietly dismissed. I had organized an art exhibition for my students, something that meant the world to them because it was their chance to be seen and appreciated. I invited my parents weeks in advance, hoping that this time they might show up. On the day of the event, my father sent a brief message saying he had a business dinner, and my mother didn't respond at all. That evening, as I helped my students set up their artwork, I checked my phone and saw photos of my family attending the grand opening of one of my father's luxury buildings. Madison stood between them, smiling confidently, dressed in a way that matched the elegance of the event. I drove home later that night with a box of leftover snacks on the passenger seat, wondering how many times I could be invisible before it stopped hurting. Madison was not completely unaware of what was happening, but she chose not to challenge it. She would send me occasional messages acknowledging that our parents could be difficult, telling me not to take their words too seriously. But she never stood up for me when it mattered, never risked disrupting the balance that worked in her favor. She prioritized peace over fairness, and over time, that silence became its own kind of betrayal. A few days before her engagement party, she sent me a message asking me not to create any problems at the event. She mentioned that our father was already frustrated about Ethan, as if his discomfort was something I needed to manage. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of how I had been treated, just a request to maintain the illusion of perfection. I agreed, because at that point, I had learned how to endure without expecting anything in return. I met Ethan in the most ordinary way, at a repair shop when my car needed fixing. He was working under the hood when I first saw him, his hands covered in grease, completely focused on what he was doing. When I asked him a question, he didn't dismiss me or rush through the explanation. Instead, he took the time to walk me through the details with patience and clarity, treating me like someone worth talking to. That conversation turned into another, and then another, until we realized hours had passed without either of us noticing. He was thoughtful, grounded, and genuine in a way that felt rare. He didn't care about impressing people or fitting into expectations, and he never made me feel like I needed to prove my worth. Being with him felt easy, like I could finally breathe without worrying about being judged. What my family never cared to learn was that Ethan was far more than the image they had created in their minds. He had built a successful network of auto service businesses from the ground up, earning respect not through appearances but through consistency and integrity. He chose not to advertise his success because he didn't see the point in proving anything to people who valued the wrong things. Back on that rooftop, as the silence stretched and the tension grew, Mr. Carter finally spoke again, revealing who Ethan really was. His words shifted the atmosphere instantly, turning curiosity into shock and admiration. My father's confidence crumbled as he realized how completely he had misjudged the man sitting just a few feet away. Ethan stood up calmly, his voice steady as he addressed the situation without anger but with undeniable clarity. He explained that he had never come there to impress anyone, only to support me, and that the way my family had treated both of us revealed more about it did about him. Then he said something that no one in that room could ignore, pointing out that I had learned to stay quiet because every time I spoke, I was made to feel like my life had no value. The truth landed heavily, and for the first time, my family had no way to deflect or dismiss it. I stepped forward, my voice steady despite everything I was feeling, and told them that I was no longer angry, just finished. Finished trying to earn approval that was never going to come. Finished pretending that their behavior didn't hurt. The elevator ride felt strangely peaceful, as if a weight I had been carrying for years had finally been lifted. When we stepped outside into the cool night air, he asked if I was okay, and I told him the truth. I wasn't, but I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, and that was freedom. The consequences came quickly after that night, affecting everyone in ways they hadn't expected. But for me, the most important change was internal. For the first time, I stopped defining myself by their expectations and started seeing my own worth clearly. And that, more than anything else, was the moment my life truly changed.